Hey, thanks for joining us again on Content Marketing World Chatter. I'm Tim, here speaking with Biff Malibu.
You
Yes,
shouldn't have told
also
me that.
known as Lee Odden.
That's right.
It's O-D-D-E-N. The second D is silent. It's Odin. But he was just telling me about his alter ego, Biff Malibu. Let's talk about Biff. Let's get into this first. When did Biff come up?
Libations and Love Connection way back when, and there was a guy on there with that name, and thought,
there was like a contestant.
A contestant was on that show, and his name was Biff Malibu, and I thought, boy, what a fun name to use when I'm out cavorting and doing the things you do when you're in college at night.
Right. I got it. Now, have you published anything under that name?
No, man, this is before digital. I'm so old. It's
okay, way before digital.
Yeah.
All right, so you lived part of your life as Biff Malibu.
a moment, a glimpse.
A moment. Went into the military under that name, or?
No. It was
okay.
Yeah.
And then founded Top Rank Marketing.
Yes, actually, Susan Michukanis started a public relations firm, and I joined after having been at a web dev marketing agency, and as an employee, and then I became a partner, and then after a few years, we switched spots. I became the CEO, and she's president.
Okay.
Which was the greatest thing because she can actually run the company in an efficient and effective way.
So look, and now Forrester just recently started this new B2B agency list, the top B2B agencies.
Yes.
And Top Rank was on the first list that came out.
Yes. It was what a great way to be recognized just by Forrester listing the top B2B marketing agencies in the country, some of the world, and one of the neat things about it is our specialty is B2B influence and content, working with influencers, and we've been doing that for a really long time. We were the only agency included that was listed with B2B influencer marketing credentials, which is pretty cool.
Look, tell me about that. There's some people are still kind of questioning the lifespan of influencer marketing. Right?
Sure.
And tell me why you see this is still a powerful way to
I think influencer marketing is powerful because of influence itself, not about the people. Influence has always been a factor in being persuasive, being effective as a communicator, as a marketer, and really being able to tap into the dynamics of that, the psychology and sociology of it, I think is something that is everlasting, it's evergreen. So while there are trends in terms of tactics that are come and go, there's this consumerization of B2B, like your B2C influencers are misbehaving and fake followers and all that crap.
Right.
And some of that's leaking over into B2B, but I think that'll reconcile a little bit and kind of clean itself out. And in the future, brands are going to be looking at influence as a really key component of their holistic marketing strategy, internally and externally.
Well, and probably I think some of that came, B2B was bitten a little bit when, because of so many B2B brands investing in the Fire Festival.
Yeah, I saw some enterprise software companies really left high and dry.
A lot of ERP, a lot of CRM.
The peanut butter sandwiches and the dust and the tents and everything. Yeah, it was a fiasco.
But some of those influencers, that was all about an influencer launch. That's kind of that house of cards. I think what gives some of this category a bad name is that there are people who will just go out and they'll take their sexy photos, out on the boat and stuff, and become an influencer. And
well, a lot of people do. When they think of influencer marketing, they think of a Kardashian, or some people thinking of someone like Batty Winkle, a 90-year-old woman who wears hip-hop clothes and now has her own makeup line on Sephora, versus someone like Tamara McCleary interviewing an executive at Dell about the right IT infrastructure for doing edge computing, right? And that's really what it's about in B2B.
Right. We did some of that. We did some of that without knowing it. When I was at Cisco, we produced this documentary. We interviewed a guy named Steven Shepard, who was a consultant for us, and it was just because he was a really good storyteller.
Yeah.
So I had this plan of, and we were kind of doing like the history of telecom, but we started off interviewing him, and he was such a good storyteller. We're like, dude, this is our documentary. Let's do this. Well, as it turns out, Steve is also a keynote speaker at all the big, Mobile World Congress, all the big telecom places.
Yeah.
And so, he would end up sharing that a bit. He'd show clips of the documentary and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think when you do, like what Top Rank does, when you bring in people who are really connected in the business, and they're authors, and they're bloggers, and they have a following, but they have competency and
Right.
expertise.
And that is one of the big differences between B2C and B2B influencers, is that in B2B you actually have to have domain expertise. You actually have to be knowledgeable and have a depth of that expertise in what it is that you're influential about. But it's also important to have a network, right, for distribution and a place to publish your content. It's great to have a personality, and that's less common in B2B. To have charisma.
Have you found any personalities in B2B?
Oh,
There's two.
Yeah, well, lack of personality is a form of personality, I suppose. And the good thing is that we figured out ways to coach folks that have that domain expertise and an active following, but they're not necessarily used to being social, and coaching them in how to activate them and to pull out the best of what they have to share in a way that's very promotable. And many of them start to open up a little bit after we show them how to do it.
So how do you bring this into play with a brand that's looking to, they have an announcement coming up, right?
Sure.
Or they need to grow awareness in a certain area. How does that play?
Right, so before, in the planning stages, we'll look at the topics that are important around the announcement and how it affects customers and how customers will think of that news, how it'll affect or change their lives. And those topics are then what we want to be influential about. We'll use those keywords or topics to go ahead and search our network or using influencer marketing software to find who is influential around those topics, who's publishing content, who self-identifies as around that topic, whose audience is actually activated around that topic. And so we find those people who are trusted voices with an active community, and we invite them to collaborate on content, give their opinion about the announcement, and so we co-create content with them in concert with brand messaging. So now instead of people just ignoring the press release, as you will do, we actually have storytelling that, like in your case, with Cisco, happening with these different voices, and you have this intersection of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 influencers talking about this topic, and those audiences intersect and cross, and they intersect across channels too, so that your customer is hearing this credible message, not only from the brand, but also from people that they trust in different channels. And that all adds up to yes. That all adds up to nurture and ultimately conversion.
Yep. Is there a case you can tell us about that comes to mind that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, sure. There's a IT service management company called Sherwell Software that was brand new to influencer marketing. So what do you do when you have no network connections? So what we did is we identified people who, there was a report coming out, the future of IT service management or something like that. So we found people who were influential around that idea, and we just published a list. Here's the top 25 people who are influential around this topic, and we honored them. After we published that, we then invited some of them to contribute to an ebook where they could share their domain expertise. And so they were happy and warm to the idea because we already gave them exposure and were willing to contribute. And because we did a lot of research on what the customers cared about, what the sources of influence were for the customers around content types and formats and channels and that sort of thing, as well as the influencer messages, the resulting ebook campaign, this one campaign, it's very unusual that this would happen, but that one campaign represented 21% of all sales pipeline for the entire year. And the vast majority of social shares, all that social traffic that came into that asset was because of the influencers sharing it. They were so proud to be a part of this thing that made them look good that it became successful as a result.
Yeah, and people want to read it because they're learning something. They're getting something out of the content.
Utility is key. Utility is key. Personality is key. Relevance is obviously key. And at the end of the day, it's got to be something that inspires people.
Yeah. You guys do that well. So look, how do we find out more about you and Top Rank Marketing?
Well, you can certainly go to marketingblog.com, where my team has been publishing every day during the week for many, many, many years. In fact, I think we're 14, 15, 16 years old, something. It's a very old blog. But also at toprankmarketing.com.
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 Awesome. Lee Oden, thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
We appreciate it, brother. All right. All right. Cut that in post. No high